Welcome. We have been waiting for you to tune in to hear tales of Prince Edward Island, a place of history and some mystery. You may be surprised by the true stories that have been unearthed and brought to life by our radio dramas. We invite you to settle into a comfortable chair and let the voices and sounds trigger your imagination as you hear the following dramatic story.
From the beginning of time, young girls have imagined the prince they will marry and live with happily ever after. The early female Celtic settlers of Prince Edward Island followed the tradition of their homeland by seeking out on All Hallows Eve the revelation of the man they would wed. At the hour of midnight, they gazed into a reflective pool or a looking glass in hope of seeing the face of their future husband. On their wedding day, they prayed for future happiness.
You look beautiful in your wedding finery, Minnie. Patrick McGee is a lucky man this day.
As am I, Mother. I can't wait to start my new life with him.
I pray he is a good man.
You have no worries, Mother. My Patrick will treat me like a queen.
But Minnie's dreams quickly vaporized.
What are you doing in bed? There's work to be done.
It's one of my headaches, Patrick. You know how I suffer with them. I need to lie here in the darkness just until it eases.
You will do no such thing. Now get up and do your work.
But Patrick!
I said get up, you lazy creature. Let that be a lesson to you, Minnie McGee, to never cross your husband.
It seemed Minnie became the outlet for much of Patrick's anger and frustration, whether it was the decision of Patrick or Minnie's own choice. In an attempt to hide both her shame and bruises, she began to isolate herself from the surrounding community. She barely left her home in a period of 3 years. She was alone for months on end as Patrick often went off-island to find work. When he came home, it was not long before Minnie was expecting another baby. By the time she was 34, Minnie had 8 children and could see no other way of life for herself but that of isolation and abuse. A man had the right to beat his wife, and if the subject of domestic violence even arose in conversation among islanders, it was most likely to ponder what the wife had done to deserve the beating. Now, while Minnie knew hardship throughout her marriage, the year 1912 would bring an entirely new kind of suffering to her.
I'll be leaving tomorrow for Nova Scotia. There's work to be had there. While I'm gone, you'll keep things running here, or you'll feel the back of my hand upon my return.
But Patrick, it's winter, the hardest time to be alone with the little ones. There's so much to do to keep the fires going and to take care of all the chores. And the days are long and dark.
If I don't work, your stomach will be empty if there's no money to pay the general storekeeper.
When will you return?
I'll be back when I'm back. Woman, don't ask questions that are none of your business.
January was bitterly cold, but Minnie valiantly carried on looking after her 8 children, whom she declared to love deeply.
Stay in bed, children, until I can get the fire burning higher. The house is bitter cold this morning. Oh dear, even with the low fire on overnight, the water in the kettle on the stove is frozen solid. Shush, shush, little one. Mommy will nurse you soon. Child, you are burning up with fever.
Cold, Mommy, cold.
Good God, you are burning up too. Get up, Johnny. I need you to go for the doctor. The babies are sick with fever.
Yes, Mother.
Tell him to hurry, Johnny. Tell him to hurry. It's okay, little ones. The doctor will be here soon. No, no, breathe, breathe. Don't you dare die on me, breathe. Doctor, please help my babies.
It is too late, Minnie. They are both gone.
But why, Doctor? How? My babies were fine just yesterday.
It would be either pneumonia or typhoid fever. I cannot say for certain.
I cannot live with this grief. Let me join my babies.
Oh, do not talk of sinning, Minnie. Life is precious, and you must think of your other 6 children and your husband.
The 1-year-old baby and 3-year-old toddler were buried, and through the long winter days that followed, Minnie was devastated with grief, and in her isolation, her head began to go astray. More and more she thought of dying, but then pondered what would become of her children. Louis, Penzie, Johnny, George, Bridget, and Thomas, all of whom she loved. In a grief-ridden state, she carried on, and winter gave way to spring. On Thursday, April 11th, Minnie gave her children a fine meal of herring, cornmeal bread, and tea.
Eat up, children. There's no better meal than herring and cornbread washed down with a good cup of tea.
Where's Johnny?
He's at your uncle's giving him a hand with the chores.
It's too bad he must miss such a good supper, Mother.
Yes, it is such a filling meal.
Not long after Minnie and her children enjoyed the supper of herring and cornmeal and sweet tea, they began to experience pain in both their heads and stomachs, followed by vomiting. By the supper hour of the following day, Minnie, though weak, was beginning to feel a little better. However, the 5 children who had eaten with her were dead, and the provincial health inspector and doctor were on the scene.
Since Johnny is the only one not to have fallen ill, I would assume they were poisoned by the herring they ate at last night's supper.
Perhaps, Doctor. But why didn't Minnie succumb to the poisoning?
She has more body weight, and perhaps, like many women living without, she gives the bigger share of food to her children.
Something is not sitting right with me. I want to take some of the organs from the children and deliver them to Montreal for cause of death analysis.
Do you really feel that is necessary?
It is best we know for certain. It might save someone else in the future.
The 5 McGee children, minus some organs, were laid to rest on Sunday, April 13th. Their father, Patrick, had come from Nova Scotia for the funeral, but come Monday, he returned to work, leaving Minnie and little Johnny alone. The following day, Johnny felt unwell.
Mother, I feel sick.
How so, Johnny?
My head hurts, and so does my stomach.
I will make you some tea and go for the doctor, my love.
Within 2 days of learning Johnny was ill, the Attorney General had him removed from Minnie's care. But it was too late, for he was dead by Saturday, April 20th. Minnie McGee was charged with murder and stood trial at Georgetown in Kings County.
Order! Order in the court! The judge is ready to deliver the verdict.
Minnie McGee, you have been found guilty of murdering your 6 children. I sentence you to be hanged at Georgetown on October 10th in the year of His Majesty, 1912.
Hang! Hang! Hang me now and be done with it!
But Minnie was not to have her wish. The authorities took her gender and condition into consideration and chose imprisonment. She spent 16 years in all between Dorchester and Kingston penitentiaries before being transferred to Falconwood Insane Asylum in Charlottetown. 40 years she spent in prison and psychiatric detention, though she was never declared insane. Finally, and mercifully, death came in 1953. Did Minnie really murder her children?
Desperate women who lose all hope take desperate action. For months I stockpiled matches, purchased for pennies at the time of my grocery order. When I figured I had enough with which to successfully free us from this world, I soaked the match heads in the tea, and when the chemical dissolved, I served up the drink. It was clever and simple.
The Life Sentence of Minnie McGee. Introduction was by Lowell Eustis. The narrator was Stuart Smith. The actors were Michelle Askew, Catherine Dixon, Wayne Wright, Jordan Stetson, Alexa McDougall, Ian Campbell, Albert Goody, and Greg Weeks. Musician was Christine Anderson Gallant. Foley artists were Krista Carruthers, Alexandra Gallant, and Paul McWilliams. Recording artist was Peter Gallant. Scripts were written by Marlene Campbell. The scripts were researched by Jean McKay. Prop managers were Carol McFarlane and Sabrina Webster. Brought to you by the support of Canadian Heritage and the Prince Edward Island Department of Tourism and Culture.